Hello. Welcome back to Tradespotting. How are you doing, MVPs, World Select? Where are you from anyway? Let me know what the demographics are like in today's stream by putting in your location in the chat box and then saying hello to people. Hello. So yeah, we've been on fire this week. Well, for a number of weeks, actually. We score goal of the season every week. We are the highlights of all of this. And we should really actually have a highlight show. Here is Friday. So we're here for market open. We're going to check out all of our favourite stonks and see what they've been up to. BlackBerry, what's it going to look like? Haven't made it above that level of support. Hood up 6%. Funny. And it got down obviously to our targets there. Also, interesting information going around in the crypto markets. Very close to that flash on BNB there. And then everybody's favourite stonk. GME, 2,655. That's obviously not correct. Right, let's get down to the actual GME. One day soon. Right, come on. So 129.31 was our closing price yesterday. As you can see in pre-market pricing, I don't know if you can see it, it's slightly off the screen. 127.63. So a little bit down, 1.3%. We have a horizontal below us. We've gone through a number of them. We have a diagonal sloping supply line, which was previously demand. And we have a channel that price action is broken below. We have a bad murder that we solved recently. And we have golden pocket, which looks like a good area for a bounce. As you can see, as I take more price action onto the chart, that area shrinks down. And we can see we're in this overall formation, which is a downward sloping channel. So 30 minutes there. Let's take it down. 5 minutes. Put on extended trading hours. And you've only got 2 minutes left until markets open. It will get more granular detail there. Here we go. So it seems as though the audio is working. See, the charts are up. Everybody's in chat box. Where are you from, then? Hello, good morning. Good morning, hello. Live in 5. That was me. Hello, friends. Hello, Shora. That tune's brilliant. Good morning, all. Good morning, or Stockholm. Stockholm. What's the weather like in Stockholm? It must be sunny. It's nice there when it's sunny, I've heard. Barcelona, of course. Of course, my horse. Charlotte. Mag. Charlotte. Hello. Hydration check. Guess I should have thought of that. Not enough cups of tea. How you doing, BMG? Morning, all. How are you doing this Friday? Good morning. Indiana. Indiana. Hello, Diana. Hello. The murder has been solved. Yes, Jen. Good. It was great work. Right. Another one up on the board. Promotion for somebody. Find out who did it. Was it? Which one of y'all figured it out? Morning from Texas. Was it you, Jen? Did you solve the murder? Is that where all the sheriffs and all, is that where they all live, isn't it? Those stories are about those people, isn't it? So maybe it was Jen. Good morning, Chris. It's great to be here at the start of the day with you all from Maine. 14:29, there's only seconds left. 14:29. We can just go back to it. No, yeah, because we want to see the gap. Right? We love the gaps here, so we do. And here we go. Boom. Market open. 128.50. Go up. Close the gap. Supplies. Price discovery. Pre-market with the auctions. Designated market makers taking control of it. 128.50. Back there to the bottom gap of yesterday. Nothing happening. Nothing happening crazy style. Let's double up with the... I was going to say with SPY, it's already here. We're already here, but we're not on the weekly time frame. Get on to the old 15 minutes. Bit of a gap. Some volume there at open. Well, it's killing hour. There you go. Slish, slash, slosh. And later on, we'll be splish, splash, sploshing. Whoa, yes, little break in between times. Oh, boys, those have I been busy this week. All right, one day, whoa, I won't be so busy. And that'll be good. As we can see, price action here. A degree of momentum coming in terms of accumulation that speaks to perhaps higher highs. higher lows, we'll see this gap is not particularly encouraging at all. What's it look like in terms of volatility? Yes, still building up here, still building up on SPY. Yeah, see, significantly above your own average in terms of volatility on SPY, as you could probably imagine with this in context of that previously. So GME, whoa, bonk, bonk, bonk. Just got knocked down a little touch there. So there's your 1 minute candles with 200 period moving average. Not bad, right? Not bad so far at 200. Stay above that. Great. It's good news on a 1 minute time frame. 5 minutes. Oh, not such a pretty picture. And there's a 50 simple. It'll provide support until such times as it doesn't. Some chick, same. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening from Australia. Good evening. Good evening in Australia. Wow, shucks. What's it like out there at the minute? Heard things are like picking up a bit and it looks all right out there. Things, cost of living crisis over here. It's terrible though. Good morning all from Finland. Wow. Is it warm in Finland? Missouri, Texas Ranger here in the Lone Star State. Yeah, so when you say it like that, it sounds like you're like the only person there. Hey, like Ranger, right? It's like, so like nothing, it's just me in the wilds. And then Lone Star State's like, this is a state for one person. She's a star and she's called Jen. And she solved a murder. And she's got a promotion, so she's a detective, Jen, now. That's what you can call her, detective. Tradespotting, good morning. Good morning, Average Monk. How are you doing? I've got some things to get through here. Oh, my goodness. Madrigal says I'm in Texas, too. Oh, my goodness. It's a double star state already. Rewatching at 2 times speed. Oh, my goodness. You just watched it once, watch it again, twice the speed. You just can't get enough of it. It's like those people that go jogging and, like, they jog ahead of everyone else. And then they, like, jog behind. And then they jog to catch up again. And you're like, wow, I only came because you wanted company. Hey, what's jogging all about anyway? So, we've got 2 things to look to here. What else is going on under IMSA? Well, just quickly, 1579. Well, this all looks familiar, doesn't it? Doesn't it? 15 minutes, there's your volume coming in. Interesting. Lower oscillation there. GME meeting resist. They're both of them meeting their diagonal downward sloping supply lines. This one's slightly more obvious, perhaps, but it's on a 15-minute time frame. So we're over here, go up to the 15 minutes. Perhaps there's different levels to look to in terms of this exact geometry, but the same, if you to draw like top and bottom, fine, right? But like you could draw from the top one to the bottom one, and it's a downtrend. Like that's another way of defining your trend. You could do the same thing in this. There's a top one, there's a bottom one, and Anyway, like I don't need to tell you what it is to when something's pointing downwards. You got that right. So 30 minutes. Keep it real on the 15 minutes. And I was going to go into these now. I'm going to look at these now. And anyone else wants to send me any facts? My goggles. Everything should be workings. Go on YouTube. There it is. Right, it's workings. That's all workings. Right. Justin Pickerel donated 420. My friend, may we have a look at baby? Holy sugar. And wasn't I just thinking it was interesting? Is that what's going on? Hey, this is it, right? We're connected. We're connected. You and I. Something weird going on. Hello, can I please have the things I'm requesting? Invalid symbol. I don't think so. That'll do. Cheers. Right, so BlackBerry. Positive at open. 15 minutes. About to get across there. Below the 200 period moving average. This would look to be like continuation divergence, and perhaps you would then expect prices to come back down, test these lows, and continuation to the downside thereafter. That's what immediately jumping out at me. I know that's a big call to make, having just looked at a 15-minute time frame for 15 seconds. But that's okay, because I haven't actually started making a clip, which is what I should have, because it's a fax request to get delivered just straight to Justin on Twitter. And aren't these things incredibly good value? Hi, Justin. Thanks so much for the facts. So you were asking about BB, my little baby BlackBerry. You've had a positive open the first 15 minutes, which is quite unusual considering it's killing hour and everything else is in for the chop. hey, so you're above the 50 simple on that 15-minute, you're below the 200 period. Price action is trying to push itself to the top side after coming in with these lows. You can see that the RSI is in the bullish control zone. That's positive on the 15 minutes. It went through the center line at pace. That was great after a little bit of a knock on the top side. Confluent with this meeting this downward sloping diagonal supply line, which I can draw on the charts here. It looks lovely. There you go. Beautiful. You broke through that center line of the RSI. That was obviously you were going to break through this diagonal. At that point, you had this horizontal to aim through because Tradespotting had already drawn it on the charts for us. And it was pretty obvious it was going there, and that was a big enough percentage move and a nifty little trade there if you were taking it, right? What was that, about 10% or so? Nice. And on a 50-minute time frame, you had a good signal for it. You also had your positive cross, and with the 200 period moving average up here, maybe you would have been even expecting a little bit more, but you've definitely met take profit zone in around here. If we are to draw on a Fibonacci from this breakdown point and see how far we made it up against that trend, is to the golden pocket. So there you go, excellent little trade. Once you went through the 236, was also confluent with breaking that horizontal, breaking that downward sloping supply line, and that was a good trade. So subsequent to that, you're in a little bit of perhaps a no trade zone on initial inspection until such times as it either makes an attempt for that 200 or it fails to hold these levels, which is at this morning has had a positive reaction, slightly contrary considering overall conditions in the market. And we'll see how that continues then, because we're back at this level of resistance price action. And on the RSI, you can see that you're perhaps putting in a lower high. That would speak to a touch of bearishness if this was to play out any longer. And if not, it might look like a little bit of a failure. So we'll see how it responds should it drop back down to the center line, and they'll go back up the time frames to get you a better picture on perhaps some more utility on your TA that you can implement depending on when this video arrives with you, sir. Let's start back up on the weekly time frame and get the big picture, right? So price action failed at these levels after breaking through the 200 period moving average. Well, I suppose actually you had a nice trade at that stage. Got up here and then after, I don't know. Anyway, right, you're looking at this and you can see that there was this potential pennant. Price action came into it on a positive side, but then overall context, there's a lot of volatility and no clear trend. Sideways price action really for a while. Thank you very much, Average Monk. I'll get to that in 2 seconds. And these are huge spikes in price action, of course, as we know about, back from $2.80 and up to a high of 28 and change. So a retracement since, similar to other stocks, we're in low lows for the biggest part of a year. These ones, these most recent lows, are higher on your RSI and don't have quite as dramatic picture on the histogram on the MACD, which would speak to a potential slowing of momentum, and then maybe the trend will be tested. You can see though that it's a lower low and it follows a lower high. If I turn off the drawings, it's probably even more obvious. This high, lower, 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 and these are the lows, lower, 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 lower again. And this most recent one, perhaps bullishly divergent. Should you make a retracement to the top side, that would have to exceed the 236 from the start of your analysis there. Well, let's take it from this high. This would be the low. We've already got plenty of drawings on here. This would mean that price action would need to make it back above 737 before you could qualify this as a local low and then put in effective divergent analysis. And until such times you can't. It would just be speaking to the fact that price action is pushing lower in the low side of a trend, and less people are willing to push that along. That doesn't mean that it isn't going to keep getting knocked down there until such times as it reaches a price that everybody, or an equilibrium where there might find some demand and supply interest, right? And then turn around in price action. You're not seeing that right now. You're also in the bearish control zone on these weekly time frames. So that speaks to, when we're looking at the low time frames and you're in the bullish control zone and we're saying, this is good, but there's qualifiers. Here we're on the weekly time frame and it's in the bearish control zone. That's bad, but again, there's qualifiers. So interesting information, and obviously the trend is quite clearly defined. Potential crosses on the MACD, but you're significantly below 200 period moving average. There's nothing about this that screams long-term positive moves yet. 3-day, other than the fact that, if you put it in the big context, like other than the sideways range, you've got huge volatility on this thing over a period of time, and you could expect a degree of that to continue. So there's that. But in terms of any particular specific artifact, I think we've exhausted the weekly. 3-day, 2-day, Again, like we talked about this formation previously, there it is on the 2-day with price action significantly back below it, back below the breakout point of that area. And that's why this horizontal was important. You've had a positive reaction since meeting it, but not yet managed to exceed the top side of that range when you were back around these prices. So warning signs here on the 2-day, and on the daily time frame, you're below that 618 of this Fibonacci from the 660 level, and that was obviously an important horizontal with your closes here. So you would perhaps put that in as resistance in any top side move, would be this formerly support area. And we can delete all the drawings. Let's just completely delete them. No, let's not completely delete them. Let's just do it over here on a clean one. Blackberry. It's part of my washing machine. There's a flash. There's a flash. Oh my lord, there's a flash on the 30-minute time frame up at 8.7. So that's super interesting. But we have to stick to the TA that we were doing initially. Back to the daily time frame. Looking left, you can see this was your previous low, 652. It's log. Everything okay here? Charts are correct. Log, right. And we're looking left. This is horizontal, 653. That's important. It's above price action in the minute, and it might prove to be resistance. You can see that this was previously support, and there was a gap which price action filled, so we don't need to put any emphasis on the bottom side of that at the minute. There's this previous area of flux in price action. You can see that was also where price broke down from before. Similarly, prices broke through this trend here. That was in head and shoulders. You got the full extent of that move, and then broke down again. Overall forming a downward sloping channel. This would be like the significant line to look to, I suppose. Then it's hard to discount it. These highs, 1, 2, 3, 4 bodies. Take this blow off top after this trend out of the picture, and just use this for our analysis and say that these are the market participants who are most relevant to price action at the minute. We'll take it through those body closes. As you can see, that catches the peaks of these oscillations, and that would be your downward sloping supply line. Looking at it on the daily time frame, I'd say it's still very much controlling price action, and we've just put in a lower low. Looking left, you can see your horizontal. That would have been really cool. Hold that in there, it's super cool, and it would have been even cooler if you were able to hold this one. That obviously, has formed resistance since price action was below it. And if we drop these Fibonacci's on again, from there's various areas to do it, but we're doing it from these ones where we've been also measuring this potential divergent change on the RSI. As you remember, we were speaking about this earlier when we had the lows. We're talking about low, low, lower, low, lower, low, etc. Lower, high, lower, low, right? Like, I can just draw it, lower, high, lower, high. This was the head and shoulders, lower, high. This led to a breakdown from this support zone, and that became resistance, also lower high. And then throughout that, you had the low, and then you had the lower low, and then you had another lower low, and then perhaps you conclude that regardless, you've got this one, and then this is another lower low within the trend. I know that wasn't particularly necessarily lower, but you didn't have a high in between times, so you could discount this. That would be the lower high. Obviously, it's lower than here, and price action turned around. You could measure that by seeing if price action exceeded beyond a 236 or whatnot, and this one I suspect didn't. Even if it did, it failed the horizontal, and that was trumped by that particular issue. And then obviously resistance here, and then this is again a lower low, and the first one where you find that your oscillator is actually higher. So a touch of bullish divergence there. That's on the daily time frame, and you see that all the way up to the weekly. Subsequent to that, everything else was lower lows throughout this oscillation on the RSI. As you can see, that matches the lows within here. So that's what you'd be looking to. As with regards to a formation, I mean, you potentially have this as a channel or a broadening wedge. It's obviously, just take it like that and probably draw it slightly more accurately. You might call it a broadening wedge. This also then looks to be, thank you very much, a narrowing wedge. I will very much, definitely, actual friend. Thank you. Get to that in 2 seconds. And so you can see that this potentially is a accumulation formation. You had one break outside of it on the RSI. That didn't take you outside the top side of the channel that you're in with regards to price action. And so this is perhaps a bearish formation so far. Even this bullish formation that we see on the RSI didn't manage to break out of it, and that downward sloping supply line now will be very relevant. That also meets our previous horizontal, which we would have hoped to be support in these areas. We never even got it once. Like subsequent to going beyond it and retracing back above it, we traced it a little bit, but not significant in that it's so late in the trend I wouldn't expect it to hold, and then you're below it again now. So is it resistance? It also meets our downward sloping supply line here in May. A few weeks' time, let's see if price action is above that, and if it is, that's significant with regards to all of this trend here, right? All of this trend, and we can define that with our Fibonacci from that high to this low. There's your 236, which is above that level at 781. Perhaps the next, oscillation above this area would lead to a test of that before a retest down, and then we can take that second level that we were finding to be useful. We've now replaced up to here, and that would be a golden pocket retracement, a test of this previous high. That would be the important area for price action to get to test the overall trend. Your next stop, having reached here, there's like no other levels to pause at until you reach 886 retracement, at which stage you'd be looking about really breaking this Fibonacci, going back and testing this overall high. That'd be up at $28. But in order to get there, you'd have to do a number of things, and I expect you'd put in formations themselves and create resistance and the levels on the chart that you'd want to test within it. Here's like a degree of the elasticity if you're measuring it on the channel alone. You might expect the implied target to match this full move. That would take you towards the golden pocket. It suggests that you might actually fail at 50%. There's a horizontal level here at 965. If price action doesn't manage to exceed these levels while the RSI pushes higher in the context of a downtrend, that might be convergence. You've already seen a touch of that most recently here, as price action failed to break the horizontal levels that on the RSI looking left it obviously had done. And in the context of a downtrend, that speaks to convergence. Here you've come in with a touch of bullish divergence, but it might well be that because you see both at once, you need to see a number of 1 in advance of a break, and then that doesn't inspire me with confidence that this thing's going to break to the top side if it does get to 236 anytime soon. And overall, in the context of what price action has been doing, I'd expect this perhaps to fail at the basis line within that if it is a downward sloping parallel channel. Just have a little idea of that. Would be your basis line. Price action would fail in around here at 6.20 or lower, maybe even lower. We'll see how price action evolves throughout today. And then you might then look to lower lows and continuation within this formation. You would see it in around 480, perhaps slightly lower. And the next buy looks around 450 with regards to testing these horizontals on the daily time frame. That's a significant distance away from where price action is at the minute. And should you get there, you can see the last time it was only support having previously broken it in this other trend. So that's the low from the previous trend at 272, and it could well be that people that buy it here that think they're catching a knife, and if they're doing it on a leverage trade, get liquidated should it shoot all the way down. But then that speaks to the fact that if you are entering at these levels, you need to manage your risk. You need to do it here too, but you'd have a lot of a tighter place to do it at, and an entry. You'd also have time, and you'd be able to analyze how price action behaved at this level should it get there. But if you are entering here, you need to stop loss. I'd suggest that it isn't necessarily a great thing to enter that trade until such times as you've seen how the momentum and volatility is performing at the time. Yo, there you are, Justin. So that's that. It's only going down to the daily, the 4-hour time frame. Continuation. That's what we speak to. There is a flash up here at 867. That is before you'd reach the implied target from the formation. It is at the Fibonacci level, like way below the Fibonacci. You might target should you exceed the 236, which is obviously above. But then there's this structural aspect to price action at the minute with the basis line within this actual channel. The fact that price action has been, generally speaking, bearish for a while, and that you've met resistance recently and didn't get on with it. And then the pivot point within this trend might be said to be this high here, which would be long before you'd reach the implied target. And as speaking to then in terms of like trend and moves or whatever, even if you did get up to 867, which is a huge percentage increase at the minute and doesn't look like it's happening right now, exceeding that from this point would be very atypical with these signatures. So that's what I would say. We go down to 2 hour and see like the RSI positive move, but back failing at the center line as price action fails at the basis line. This all sort of adds to the picture of what we were saying before, and then you look at this implied target and it seems very ambitious at these levels. You can see there's a touch of bullish divergence between these lows. So perhaps price action could test and make it above the center line, or does that just, well, it's done it on the RSI, but does it do it on the basis line here? Interesting. We'll see. 15-minute time frame. What are you getting? Anything exciting here in the bullish control zone? So these are what you're looking to. It could happen. Could happen, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily going to right now. If we're to take a Fibonacci on these tiny time frames from this most recent high down to this low, you can see the 236 on this oscillation would come in at around the basis line, and so there's a lot of reasons why price action would stall there. I'd be hesitant to enter this above 4.44, and even then I'd be managing my risk, expecting that it might screw people and go down even further, down to 272, or further down even more. So that's a clip for Justin. I'll get that delivered to you after today's morning stream. Thanks, Justin. There you are in chat box, though. Thanks. Right, so I've got another one from Bob here, and then I see a couple have come in. Average Monk, yo buddy. Definitely have a look at that. I see Baba is on the list. Natural Friend, how you doing, friend? Can you take a look at NGD? Thanks, pal. You bloody well betcha I can. I can deliver it to you as a clip on Twitter if you like. But just tell me your Twitter username. Well, I probably do know it, right? But then maybe I don't want to because you don't want doxed. I don't know. Anyway, I'll make it now and you'll be here, so it'll be great. And Justin, 499, wonderful, my friends. Thank you, Justin. So put that one over here. Thanks. That's a thanks. And what else did we get earlier to make sure I did that? That's Justin's one, so get that there. Thanks, Justin. Average Monk, Natural Friend. We've got Bob the Builder up first. Want to have a look at Facebook, which we certainly will do. And Natural Friend said DWAC doing well. So let's have a quick look at that just because, right? Because we predicted it would do well. Open, positive open there. And then has held the gap on the second 15-minute candle. Volume through here. The fact that one's red and one's green is like, why? This is useless. It's so stupid and useless. Like, why? What are they? Is it a mistake? Did they not know themselves? Like, does it mean anything? Idiots. Anyway, wonderful. Like, for example, that was red. It was because this was a red candle, but it was a lot of volume that took the price up a lot, and like, sure, the candle can be red because that demonstrates that the close was below the open, right? Which is handy for like analyzing like that particular candle and what happened during that time period without having to click others. That's what it's for. That and like using the analysis. But let's put in a color on a volume. Like, it's straight up misunderstanding what anything means. It's ridiculous. Right, I've already got colored candles, thanks. Why doing that? Why doing that, TradingView? Why doing that? This is intentionally infantile in people, and it gets so many people confused. Anyway, stop it, TradingView, stop it. So, also, you should definitely think about sponsoring this channel. I'm a very good advocate for yourselves. Right, so thanks, TradingView. You're great. So here we are, looking at TradingView again. And what was I thinking? Crazy stuff, really. So, but else? Well, let's also have a little quick look at it now, just because we've been off it for a minute. Just want to have a little look at what did we say about this? Well, we said it on this chart. This is where we drew it, so I can draw it again. We don't draw it again. I can get it up. Great. 51.69. Right, so there is a gap. Bad murder. There's been a bad murder in the digital world. Oh my goodness, this is a bad murder in the digital world. You know what that means? Boom. 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 Drop it there for now. Right, it's not all that huge. It's actually quite nice. I like that. It's discreet. So you came up to this was an inflection point and repeated that body, managing to retrace the top side, holding that level. 15 minutes gives us more information about that same thing, yes. So you're holding this horizontal at the minute. That's good to see. It's the Fibonacci, it's the 382. You've exceeded the 236, so if you can hold the 382, that's very, very positive. You went through it at pace, and then if you come back and hold it, right, I don't care if this is a purple, blue, green, white, invisible candle, right? The fact that the price action did what it did, it went through it and then subsequently held the 382 on a body, even though it wicked below as it did. And then the next candle opened above the 382, which you didn't need to do, right? There was not, like, why, right? that's what it was doing because of that. And then subsequently has so far been bullish. It's good. But overall, right, that doesn't prove anything. You need loads more than that. This isn't really good to see price action moving, the RSI moving back into the bullish control zone here, having like dropped out of it, and potentially like that's a straight up possible swing failure, and now it's going through, right? So it's not a swing failure, which is fantastic, because that would have been terrible. You would have been definitely back at the 236, 200 period moving average there. I'd be on saying it's gone there right now, and it might go there, but this is like lots of opportunity. This will be like, people's eyes will be tingling looking at that. And then I'm not financial advice, and I'm not saying trade it. I mean, this is the place to enter it down here, right? And then it broke the 200 period moving average and retested 236. That was the time to enter it if you want it. Now, this isn't, right? It's not. So, and tough luck, right? You've got to trade things when it's the right time to trade them, not the wrong time. So, congratulations if you're anyway. So that's that. Which that's not what we were actually talking about. I wanted to have a quick look at this though as well. Hi, 130 spot 11. Hi. So you've recovered enough to fill that gap back at this downward sloping, pardon moi. Right, got important messages. Whoop, whoa. So the previous demand supply, right, we've done the analysis. We wanted it to break above here. It's trying. Good on you, mate. Good on you, mate. Good on you. You've held the center line there. It's a 15-minute time frame. That's also great. Come on. Come on. It's like, what is it? I don't know. I don't have kids. But if I did, even if they weren't good at something, I'd be very encouraging, because it's all about them enjoying themselves, really, isn't it? Because, later on they'll decide lots of other things and full personality and whatnot. And this one moment, it's just important about giving them confidence and, yay, enjoying it. And so that's what I kind of think about. Like, come on. But also, if you go down there, I'll just buy some more of you. So that's cool. And I expect you will do. So, right. And what else are we going to look at? We're going to do that thing that Bob was asking for. And we can make a clip and everything. Well, get it up first, right? Okay, I'll get it up. Facebooky. What is that? What is this? Well, they're actually meta platforms over here, right? So there's... Bob, right? Bob, there's been a terrible, terrible murder, but we just touched on and briefed the MVPs in chat there about the fact that there was a bad murder on DWAC a minute ago in the digital world, and we discreetly brought that into conversation, so everyone's prepared, and you'll be delighted to know that we've got Jen from Lone Star State here, and she's been recently promoted. We're going to solve this thing, because this is a disgrace, right? There's been a bad murder, and it was brutal, it was disgusting, it was awful, and we're going to have to draw in with this the circle, and as you can see, that is like all-consuming. It's like a magnetar in the middle of a previous trend. Do we think that'll be tested? Well, there's so many horizontal levels within it too that this could be, the fabric of the story could evolve so much in here. We could see, wow, so many good people liquidated because they couldn't handle their fear or greed at different times. That could happen very much. So I see this, and opportunity screams at me, I'm a good person. So you can imagine what a bad person might do if they had a lot of money, and the people who run Facebook got a lot of money, and they thought, we fancy a little bit of liquidity, and in this ticker there's an awful lot of liquidity, and then you might look down at these horizontal levels and you could do all sorts of hig-jiggery buggery, and that would be hilarious. Also, you'd make loads of money. So what do I think about this? Let's start on we'll go back to the weekly as we usually do, and we can see there's already a little bit of information on the chart here, right? Lows, high, low, high, low, high, high. Price action ranging there. As you can see, these are very more or less level. The breakout point here was after a break in a higher high and a higher low. Price action there was, not necessarily giving you conflicting signals on both sides of the trend. You broke to the top side. That was a reaction from this test. RSI breaking above the center line, price action recovering above the 200 period moving average, and then this tweezer coming in and breaking that previous high. A retest of that previous resistance level from here, and then a break to the top side was obviously like you're already at all-time highs, continuation expected, and at that point you're not necessarily anticipating a retest to these levels. You're thinking that this potentially puts in some sort of a bull flag, which it kind of did. That was extended, held to 50, simple, part of a bullish trend, and tech was going up. So from March last year, you had that positive move. And then price action decided to collapse on Facebook in around Tradespotting's birthday. Back down below the 50 simple, tested to 200, didn't hold long, straight below that nightmare resistance when you got back to it, below the 8-period exponential on the weekly, right? So that's all real tough and kind of crap, right? Kind of crap, weak-ass crap price action on this thing. Despite the fact that on lower time frames, we could see that it had quite an impressive recovery and strong moves. And then going back on the weekly time frame, we could see that it was trending. It was very difficult to stand in front of it and say that it would stop, right? And so you don't have that picture now. Instead, you've got something that's been performing kind of craply, even in the context of a good move on those smaller time frames. You can see that this week could be better, right? It could be better in that you could have a bullish engulfing candle, and that would mean that Friday, today, at close, would need to finish above 218.6. And that's your target if you're already in a trade to the top side. You're hoping it pushes above 218.6. You can see on the weekly time frame, you've tested 200 period moving average before and failed. There's a body close in here at 225. Where did that just go? Here it is. A body close at 225. And then you've got your 200 period moving average currently on the weekly in around this breakdown level and the test of this wick hack. So I'd also put a little line in there and say, should you make it above 218, you could close like, you'd probably still be waiting for at least a daily. So I wouldn't even take it like on top of the weekly close. So like if it's just the weekly, if just today closes somewhere stupid like 237, I'd expect price action to come back again. And quite immediately at the start of next week. If it doesn't, and am I recording this as a clip? Good. So if it doesn't, you could exceed that and go at 225, whatever, come back to that point, test these breakout levels. That would be super positive if you're looking for an uptrend and a change in the trend. But you have most recently put in a low. That was a possible, rejection wick from those levels, 169. And you have pushed towards the top side of the bearish control zone and recover your own moving average. That's good to see. Then, let's look from that on this Fibonacci from this most recent high and see where the 236 came in. That was where your body opened above, right? Which is why, despite being lower, you still managed to hold this level. Also, like with that reaction on the wick, this is why would it go to there if it doesn't recover the previous low? Well, it was significant that it covered the 183 and open in here, pushing lower, and then closing up here. That encompasses the whole of the 236 to the golden pocket. So that might be the entirety of that move. You're also, like we were saying, hitting the 8-period exponential. So you're in a strongly downward trend on the weekly time frame, very strong downtrend. And you've not definitively made it above the bearish control zone. You haven't broken that golden pocket. And you've not entirely put in a bullish engulfing candle. So despite how positive it feels and looks on the higher time frames, it's still crap. 3 days. You can see that this is now looking like a tweezer bottom here. The resistance that you see at the top of the golden pocket looking left is also an area horizontally on the chart where you would expect to find something to slow you down. So that's not too negative, and maybe that negative inflection from the higher time frame speaks to like you need to break that trend. So let's see if it's happening. 2-day, this is where your gap is now obvious as well. And huge. It's brutal. It's so brutal. Your retracement here at 193.43, holding that's the 382. Test of that's very positive. You've gone back above 50%, back up to the top, right? So it's a strong move on 2-day. Down to the daily, the gap slightly more obvious now. 8-period exponential. So you've recovered that and you've hit the 50 simple. You've also reached the top side of the golden pocket, and it is the top side for your close and exceeded on a wick. So that's interesting. Closed above there and took it RSI above the center line. That's also good. And you've got potential crossing the MACD coming up. That's also very, very good, right? But the 200 period moving average is freaking miles away. So you got to put that consideration that all of those reasons why a trade might look bullish is actually in a bearish trend. And as such, all of those signs have a different inflection point. Instead of being exciting should they happen, they need to happen, or continuation. And so there's a huge gap here, right? And like I say, it's fucking huge. It's like, right, what's going on in there? There's probably fossils of shit in there, right? It's messed up. And so there's also this previous gap as well. It's filled when this came back down. Anyway, right, the 236, that's important. You've managed to gap above all of that right to the golden pocket. People might have thought it was an impossible trade, but it's not so bad. The previous trend beforehand, looking left, you could say that there was bullish divergence between those levels. So maybe you are looking up and saying, well, whoa, resistance might be at 200, or it might be somewhere else. There's also this obvious, oh my goodness, where have you been? Right, Jen, thank goodness we've got this recent promotion, because we're understaffed, right? Understaffed, and we're overcrimed big time. So there's this huge, obvious, devastating, I don't know, what did that howitzer? So Jen, you're going to have to invent, the murder weapon there is probably the size of a building. Jen, what's that all about? Right, so there's a huge gap up there, price action. The top bottom side of that, you'd find at the 1.13 extension of the Fibonacci you're in at the minute, and that's confluence that might really lead to resistance. Let's drop that line in there and say that would be the top side of a move. Should this continue at that stage, you might, what would you need to see that? Well, this is a daily time frame. On the 2-day, we're looking at a tweezer bottom. What was it? Where was it? It was a 3-day. Yeah, 3-day. So you want to see this continue without any retracements. You're going to have to ignore the gap in the daily time frame. Ignore the gap. Hold the 50 simple. Hold the bottom side of the golden pocket, 208. So like now great if you finish 218 and above. Looks positive for next week. You don't, then perhaps we're looking at retraces, and you don't, like how far below 208 would be quite distinct. 4-hour time frame. This is a doji candle after a gap with right. So this is potentially a good, if you can, like that was the entry from this candlestick here, and you're held by the 50 simple. So I'd say the 4-hour now needs to prove itself by closing again above 218.81. And if it does that, a 4-hour does that, then even by the end of the day, you'll be aiming for 225. That's what it looks like. But also, you'd have to ignore all of this huge stuff that's going on down here. And Jen might be on the case, which if she is, you're going to have to be, right, somebody going to jail. And then there's another flash and tour up at 376.9. That's somewhere to aim for. It's like not necessarily one of the areas that this Fibonacci would take you to alone. You'd be looking at perhaps something else within a move. There's your previous high, and there's your most recent low, and that comes in at around a 1.13 extension. I'm sure you could make that more accurate if you wanted. You could even probably take it from the drop down from the breakdown point here, and then it's nearly on it, right? So that's probably what it is. And then again, like I say, you can make it more accurate. So it may well be that once you break through the 886 of this fib here, and that level's around 225 that we're speaking about, that horizontal is important. Perhaps it goes all the way up to 227 and whatnot. If you do touch it off the 1.13 and then continue that move, it would also be making it way back through the golden pocket here. That's what you would have expected to do should Facebook hold 201, 202, even if it does drop below the 218, then 208. If it holds 202 over the period of like the next couple of weeks, never mind, just like it could do today, it could all be come back down, test this and do it all today. But if it does, it bounces from there, then you would be looking to exceed the 1.13 all the way back up to the golden pocket here. You see Facebook would be back up at 260. And if it manages to hold that, that's big way into this previous gap. At that stage, I'd expect some sort of a retracement. I'd expect stop operators operating correctly. Screw everybody who wasn't aware of how they operate and wasn't aware of gaps and how they're traded. And I'd expect them to typically take their foot off the gas here at the 0.5 retracement, let people get sucked into that trade, and then take all their money off them. And then you'd be looking at whether or not that was what Jen had just solved the murder down here, something around those similar times, and you might, right, so oscillations within this could be quite violent still, and I don't think you've necessarily broken the downward trend, which, as we looked at on the higher time frames, is now a little bit naff. You do have a flash up at 376.9. That would be Facebook going back up again to test this previous high, and maybe not put in a little bit higher. But say, for example, SPY does, as it always does, goes up from like a deep low retrace and continues this trend that it's been in for around 10 years, 11 years or so. If that happens, it doesn't matter that Facebook is a piece of shit. It'll probably also go back up and try it. And it's a question of, does it put in a higher high that looks healthy, or is it divergent, or does it fail to do so, and what's going on at SPY at the same time? So that's the overall picture. And most of this move's already happened. As you can see, this golden pocket itself means that it's like an inflection point in the market. There's this gap below, there's a huge gap above, there's 200 period moving average with some way into that. There's $260 when you're at that would fill the gap, 200 period moving average at the minute. This is 260 golden pocket retracement from the dominant fib from the breakdown level, and that would stop you filling it. It would be very dodgy around there. If you are taking that trade, it's based off a retest of on a breakout of where you are at the minute, or something slipping back in and testing a horizontal level there before filling this gap, maybe the 50% at $200. Maybe those 201, 202, those sort of levels we were talking about earlier. Refer back to the order time frames and videos. So thanks very much, Bob, and I hope that's useful. You're right, there is loads of bad muddas. Tradespotting, can you please investigate the bad mudda on Facebook, from Bob? So I'll do that. I did that. I'll tweet that at you when I get the show finished today. Not aiming for these levels right now. A little bit suspicious of this thing. I think it's a little bit like a piece of crap, but also aware of the fact that SPY's like acting in such a way that people might be getting tricked. And let me just double check back what is SPY doing today. Interesting. You're above that horizontal and that downward sloping supply line. We'll see. And this was obviously a doji candle at the bottom of a previous trend. So interesting. There's also this horizontal, and that would suggest that price action could be in a downward sloping channel, and that would just be a displacement of this previous trend. That would be very, very positive. Like if it held horizontal levels, especially these ones, should it break above it and test that, like, you know, they'd be hilarious because so many people would be wrong. So many people. And I did say, you know, SPY looks like it might be absolutely and utterly screwed, but I was saying it in around these levels, you know, I've been saying it in around these levels and at these highs, and that looks dodgy, not at lows. And then also there's the context of this high here, right? This isn't like structurally, this is completely irrelevant at the minute. And so if you're using that to define this as like, oh, that's a lower high, and that's like, no, you're not doing it right. You look left and you're looking to see if this forms like a complex head and shoulders. That's what you're looking for here, the X on this previous harmonic, which worked out fucking amazingly. You're looking for that. Is it, you know, it's holding these levels at the minute. It's 200 period moving average, meeting it there in the 2-day time frame. You go to the weekly, and it's like horizontals, important horizontal levels here that it's managed to hold so far. This is important. And anyway, right, so it potentially does form a complex head and shoulders. It has already put in a lot of that, but like the place to be using that for practical utility over your own trading was back in around these highs, not at lows. That's the clip. Thanks very much, Bob. Thanks, Bob. Damn. And we've got average mug and we've got natural frame. 2 more. Bam. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, hello there, Mr. Origami. Case never die, case never die. Yo, how's it going? Yo, James surname. So when we find out dividend ratio, yo, well, we'll find out for sure when we vote on it. Have you voted? You have to do vote. You have to remember, as I didn't realize for like, I don't know how long it took me, but it was a significant amount of time. I've got shares in lots of places. And just voting, I have to vote all of them. Anyway, what's H&L up to, right? They weren't letting people vote the last time, and they were saying it's because of Euroclear, and then we spoke to Euroclear. We spoke to Euroclear. We did on the channel here, various ways, and they said, no, it's perfectly possible for people to vote. And H&L were like, nope, yeah, it's impossible. No, we can't do it. And we were like, yeah, but they can. And look here, they spoke to them, and then look, it says it here in their documentation, and this is how you do it. And H&L were like, yeah, nah, I can't do it, sorry. Computer says no. But well, next time, so this is the next time. So what's up? You allowed to? Can you vote with H&L, or are they just talking out their ass again? I would die if they announced a smaller split before the shareholder meeting. Hey, guys, I thought we had a plan. Crest. They said this time to someone in the community who is chasing it still. Crest. They're using Crest, yeah, but yes, they do use it, but they let them, I finally voted with Fidelity. Well, that's good. That's great. Good news. We're talking about GME. Did I never met? I may have even made that distinction. So that's what did I say that? Anyway. It was because somebody asked about stocks. But same, Lipton, I think I'll be calling my broker today. Yeah, when you're on the phone, say, shut up, or whatever. And I'll be like, no, I wasn't talking to you, or whatever. Or say, I was talking to you, whatever you feel like. Who cares? It's just, you know, they ought to know, though. So when we find out the dividend, yes, we got there. What did I miss? Anything up here? Why? Why not? And wow, GME really bouncing around. Is it? What's it doing? 129.25. It's not actually bouncing around when I'm looking at it. It's nearly the same price it was. Here, what are you talking about? Yo, what are you talking about? Really bouncing around, huh? See, the way, maybe that's sort of like the median, isn't it? So 138.2. Sure, we looked at the other TA earlier. What are you talking about? What is incorrect? Nothing. Everything's correct. Everything at the same time. Will do, sir. Tradespotting. Will do what, Homer? Hit that like button. What was it we were talking about? I voted as well. Oh, right. Check what you're voting everywhere. Yes. Yes, check what you're voting everywhere. Imagine, right? I reckon lots of people are going to forget, like, average amongst just an aid for, not that it matters, I think we'll all be fine anyway, but like at the last time the question was like, oh, let's get as many votes as possible because, you know, like it'll add up to more shares than there are, and that'll be absurd. And this time it's not necessarily like that. We just want to ensure that the things go through, but we expect they will. And yes, okay, so let's get on to this requests. I'll start a clip too, because why not? Here we are with a request from, which one came in first? I don't know, right? Let's go with Natural Friends one because it's closer to me. Thanks, Natural Friend. We have a request from Natural Friend. Oh my goodness, I should have sounded excited, but I didn't know which one to do. Anyway, so here it is, and it's from Natural Friend, and it is Ngede. New gold Enkedy. Alrighty, nice positive move there on the 1 hour time frame, considering it's been in downtrend. It's not actually exceeded anything important, but let's have a look at that. Thanks very much. This is a clip from Natural Friend, who is total legend. He's in the chat box now, I suspect. Right, we'll start on a weekly time frame. I am recording, the microphone is working, this is the correct ticker, and we can see this has met this downward sloping supply line here, which it's met a number of times before, but that's the third time. So now they're married, and then there you go. That's like they're consummating the marriage now, and they're trying to take it to below the 200 period moving average. Put it away, guys. Get out of room. Anyway, right, there's a 200 period moving average. Price action is currently above it, and you can't knock that fact. You can also then take more of this trend onto the screen. See this perhaps as like just a continuation of a train that's already in motion and hasn't yet changed direction by any description. You had this low, 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 1, 2, 3, and within that you had 3 touches of bullish divergence. There's the 1, there's the 2, there's the 3, and there's this little, is that it there? Where am I doing this at? Here, higher, higher, and then where's this one? Lower. I suppose it was like in the context all 3, right? Maybe like 2 out of 3 is not bad. And when you consider all 3 of them together, there is actually 3. So, you know, and if not, right, whatever. So that was the reason price action then recovered its own moving average at this point. It broke through that downward slope and diagonal on RSI. That point, it broke also through this horizontal level on price action. You might then be saying, you know, some people do this, right? They say like, here's the horizontal level on the RSI. And then they go and they draw that level on price action. They're like, and it's like, what's that? Because giving you literally no value, right? You've already got that, right? On both, right? Right. So you drew it on one, and what you're looking for is the distinction. And on this, it's the horizontal levels on price action. That's why I say I put like interest on horizontal levels as opposed to diagonal lines. And it's not because of like simply to do with the robust or how, you know, you can use them and their integrity within your overall technical analysis. No, that's not what I'm saying. This is like a more sort of point that also, what are you using it for, right? I mean, there has to be, right, so here we're using the horizontal levels, and you can see like, here was the horizontal level, and here was the horizontal level, and here was the diagonal level that was defining the trend here. So when this diagonal level was broken, this downward sloping trend would be tested, while price action making it to the top side of it, and that, i.e. testing resistance. Not just like, well, it'll maybe also break its own downward sloping line and yada blah blah. So what, right? That doesn't mean anything. I mean, you already see it broke that one. So this is like, oh, anyways, you're not asking for a lesson like that, but there's it anyway. So, and for anyone watching along, there's a bonus lesson. Get that like button. So this, you know, is made up, that last line, whereas these are relevant, and price action went through there. It also made it into the bullish control zone, so it broke it through that resistance. It went back above the 200 period moving average. That was very positive, and it spoke to potentially this trend changing, right? Because since this high and this high, which was like close to each other, but very much a rejection from the RSI. You came back down, right? You started this downtrend, and you can see the integrity of this downward sloping supply line all the way through that trend. And that's lasted for frequent ages there, since the 29th of August 2011. And throughout all of that trend, since it started and then, was then confirmed with two of each, a lower high and lower low, you were below the 200 period moving average on the weekly time frame, and you've been below it ever since until this point here. And then you tested this downward sloping supply line that we see you had 1, 2, 3 touches, and then we spoke about this. Very rude. And then you've now got a retest of the 200 period moving average. You've had one before, you fell through it the next time, now you're at it again. Does this mean it's some sort of sloppy inverted head and shoulders? Potentially you've got something similar coming through on the RSI. If this manages to hold at the bearish control zone top side of that, even better if it tests back above the center line immediately. And 200 period moving average there suggests it gives it a reason to do so. It's not quite got down it yet, but that's interesting, right? It does speak to possible moves outside of this downward sloping supply line. If that were to happen, it might take something like this implied target. That would take you, should you break in it around that horizontal, let's put it there for argument's sake, back to the next level up at around 390. And that's a horizontal level. Should you be looking at these sort of things, let's go through them now. And I should have probably done it beforehand, then it would look even more impressive at this stage, right? So there's one. Another. Whoa, Tradespotting. Calm down, right? So, great, right? It does look impressive anyway. Up at around 338. That's what you'd be aiming for if this does manage to break out. That's also a pivot point looking left. You can see it was this level of resistance within the previous trend. I speak to previous, but that's still currently persisted. And then, so that's what you'd be looking at. And in terms of Fibonacci's retracements and whatnot, that would be significant. I don't think that's more than 50%, but we'll check it out. Here's your 236. Oh, it would be all the way up to the golden pocket. And not only did you break the 236 when you broke through that downward sloping supply line that we spoke about previously, that would be best defined with horizontals and the downward sloping diagonal on the RSI. You also went through the 236. So like loads of confluence that would have told you to aim for that 200 period moving average. This is like Tradespotting T8 wrapped with a little bow on it, right? This looks beautiful and it's perfect. And like you got your re-entry here on a potential break of this level. You also got a take price, so it's like fantastic. And then if I was going from this high to that low, I'd say there's your 236. It's in line with the 200 period moving average. On the weekly time frame, we're getting so much value just looking at the weekly time frame for the probabilities is coming out here. And that holding that 236, meeting that 200 period moving average, all in the context of this previous tap, get the out of the way resistance. You make it back above the golden pocket subsequent to this, you'll be aiming for the 1.13, you'll be going to the golden pocket, and you might even touch up at the 1.618. And that's what you'd be looking for on the weekly time frame. We'll go down and look at other things, but that's interesting, right? Let's call it like a forecast. Let's say it's something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to get that low, and that's your first place to aim for. So 134 and then a 359, right? That could be good, especially if you're playing it by ear and watching it as things happen. Now we're here on a daily time frame. Wow, this is fantastic value. But then we could see bad news. We're below the 200 period moving average. Oh no! And then there was a touch of failure about this. It smelled like some failure, and then it fell below the center line at that point. Here's your 236, an extension after failing to retest at the 200 period moving average. Continue on down there. Let's see if the RSI puts any signature on lower term time frames. Might even give us some bullish divergence. That'd be lovely, doubly down there, wouldn't it? Down at the 4 hour, I can see exponential. You've caught your maybe you have held this level, right? This is candle was bullish in of itself. It's a 4 hour start today. Let's see how price action evolves. You've got a potential crossing the MACD. You're still just pushing at the top of the bearish control zone. Even making it to the center line here doesn't say it's going to break the 200. May well be that this oscillates back up to around 168, 167, 169, those sort of levels. Maybe give or take a few cents, right? We'll call it 160. Anything beyond that, you're chancing a bit. And then fails and comes back down and tests this 236, and it still looks like that would be the best entry on the 4 hour and a weekly time frame. If it doesn't and it turns around here, you're looking at it like thinking if it does manage to break, there's tiny little gaps in the 4 hour here. If it does manage to break above 160 and hold that, perhaps then subsequently it looks to be making its way through 1.67, and you can see a candlestick formation that suggests a positive entry. That a place to go to. and then you're still aiming up above there, and it's the same targets to the top side if that's the way it works. But I would anticipate something coming back down here, and that looking like potentially a really positive move. If it doesn't work, right, bear in mind that it's been in a weekly downtrend since 2011. It's only just captured the 200 period moving average, but it hasn't broken resistance yet. And even the implied target from this, the measured move with an inverted head and shoulders and potential continuation to the upside within this downward sloping trend, but then it wouldn't break it overall, would be like you'd be limited to levels around $3.60 and $3, well, I mean, top side of that, maybe 450, 460. It's quite a big range. But until such times as you've broken all of that, I wouldn't be looking much higher. Though it's interesting, and this thing has violent moves when it does move, right? That was obviously back 2008. Lower low since then. New Gold Inc. is a gold mining company which is engaged in operation, development, and exploration of mineral. Yeah, I would imagine so, right? So, yeah, interesting, right? Thanks very much for that facts. It'd be good to see this, right? If the gold does, right, right, if gold looks like, hold 2000, fantastic. 2500, the next target. If it goes to 3, that's incredible. Keep your eyes open around the 3rd or 4th and the 5th of May. Things could go freaking crazy. Could go crazy. And I'm not just talking about SPY overall, but gold as well. Thanks very much for that, natural friend. That's that clip. Hopefully there's some value in there for everybody. And I'll deliver it to you wherever it suits. Hey, how good was that? That was brilliant, by the way. That was actually brilliant. Here, that was brilliant. Detective Jen Campbell, maybe you can check out with me and see if we can find an opportunity to show those movements limit. I can actually that. That's a perfectly acceptable message. What's YouTube like? Now we have Average Monk's request for Baba. Hey, Baba. Hey, Baba. Baba, Baba, Baba. Right, so have you seen it, right? Also, right, this right, if I was on Bloomberg, I would say this a few times, like when I was skiving and I was on the Bloomberg terminal and that, you just look at all the stuff, the satellites. Satellites are dead interesting. To show you loads of shit. Sometimes you just stare at oil tankers, like, and you're like, that's a bit, there's no one on that oil tanker, and it's storms coming, and you're eating your sandwich, and it's dead interesting. It's dead interesting. So I want a Bloomberg terminal back just for that. But if I was on it at the minute, I'd be looking at all the ports in China and I'd be like, look at that. Look, you can't get your shit off your boat because this boat's in that, and they can't get their shit off their boat because there's no one to take it off the boat. And then that boat can't park in its parking space because your boat's in it, and there's 10 other boats. And then every other boat that's waiting, they're like way out here because they can't. And now if that's so bad that the waters are just completely congested with traffic and nothing can get in or off, and the congestion in the ports is terrible. And when did anyone think that zero COVID policy was going to work? That's a stupid idea. It's so stupid, especially after this amount of time's passed. I mean, do they not read the newspapers? They're smart if they don't, but like, geez, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. So why are they so daft? I've got another message. Thank you, Jamie. Have a great day. Excellent. Thank you so much, natural friend. You have a great day. You're excellent friend. Thank you very much, natural friend. Thank you. What a generous chap. He's been so very good to me this week. Thank you so much. Right, so Average Monk, you were asking. Yes, Average Monk. Am I hitting record clip? So a lot of congestion in them there ports out in China, and things looking a little bit difficult for logistic businesses or those that rely on exports. Alibaba very much one of those, and there's a lot of volume coming in, as you can see here, a weekly time frame, price action meeting resistance of a downward slope and diagonal, a lot of resistance and a lot of volume coming in. That was also in a move to the top side, a significant move in terms of price action though, from 73 all the way up to 125, so you can't scoff at that. Though price action immediately rejected from that level, it constitutes a lower high looking left and further moves to the downside. You've subsequently had bullish pictures on the RSI, and that is managed to make it back above the bearish control zone. At the same time, that candle on the weekly is bullishly engulfing, so that's super positive. But you've had a number of candles that are like that, like for example, or your most recent low that didn't actually result in defeating the trend. So that doesn't speak to strongly. It doesn't give me much confidence with that signature on this asset at the minute on this time frame. Weekly held also by the 8-period exponential, so you're in a strong downtrend. This volume, is that taking profit? Is that stopping volume? Start of that downward trend. You don't really have that volume to start the downward trend. 1, 2, 3. looks like a potential head and shoulders there. Divergence on the shoulder on the right. Most volume on the left shoulder. Nope. So that wasn't like a typical head and shoulders. But you did get what would be considered a good move out of it. And then the divergence there leading to price action test 200 period moving average in this upward sloping trend, which on the weekly time frame is quite clear. Yo, Lady Kim, thanks so much. Banana, yeah, where is he? Yeah. Boom, boom. Right, so good old Australian banter in chat there, eh? So, average monk, this is your Baba TA. Price action on this thing was divergent its most recent high. That led it to come back and test this trend. Upward sloping demand line broke. And 200 period moving average didn't even really use that as support. 50 simple came through it, death cross on the weekly time frame. You weren't able to hold the structural support in it around 128. There was a flash on the weekly time frame at 84.94 and it came back and filled it. The volume that we see now is likely stopping volume, but where was the starting volume? It's hard to see, right? And as such, you can't actually rely on that for any degree of anything. And if you were to anyway, you would see, well, it came in with a retest of this downward sloping supply line, which we could define with another line here, trend line. You can see it came in, retested that area, and that might have, like this volume candle here will include all the people who thought it wasn't going to break that, and they were right. So, how much emphasis can you put on this in terms of using it for any bullish thesis? Not very much. Then you have a bullish engulfing candle here in the weekly time frame, which sounds great, but like that previous one we spoke about before, it didn't manage to break the trend. That doesn't inspire you with confidence with this signature on this time frame on this asset. So that's the weekly. We can see that you've had positive crosses on the MACD, but you're well below the 200 period moving average and below the 50 themselves, having crossed negative slopes on both the negative display. RSI pushing above its own moving average and back out of the bearish control zone, but you've not gone back above a 236 in the trend, so you can't define it as a local low. So there's no any use for that in terms of divergence. Between these two lows possibly, but as I say, you managed to get up to the only resistance and then fail. So this, a positive move, only took you back to the 236 up at around 105.26 is where you'd find resistance there. If you manage to make it above that, you've got your downward sloping supply line again. Why would you test that so soon, having failed at it so dramatically so recently? The 236 seems like it would be the place to fail at on the weekly, and that's this Friday, so that's why that's very relevant. Those two oscillators with the information they're giving us on the 2-day time frame. You can see continuation possibly. Looking left, what is that on this small move? Just the golden pocket retracement again. There's your low from that high, and that's to the golden pocket and no more. There's your 236 now, back down at 90.35. You don't really want to fall below there by the end of the week. I wouldn't expect it to necessarily do so. It's trying higher in this oscillation. The 50 simple comes in at 115.29. If you do make it through the 236, can't see it breaking through that. It failed out once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. I mean, we're back in January 2021 already since it managed to break through that. So we'll see on the first pass, having stalled, like not stalled at a 236, to then also go straight through that. That speaks to something that hasn't been done in a long time. Wouldn't anticipate it happening. I think this is likely at some levels of resistance at the short term, even though we're looking at longer term timeframes. There's the daily, oh no, a bad mudda, and it's taken us to the 50 simple. Since then we've had negative candle itself, a doji. Doesn't speak to the strength of breaking any trend. We've also met this horizontal and the 236 and gone no further. So here I'm looking at this and thinking maybe you get a retracement back again. If so, I'd take it from this low. I'd measure it to there where you recently got that test. So your golden pocket comes back in below the breakout zone. So you'd cover this gap, and it looks like that would be what I'd suggest that. I mean, Jen's busy solving other muddas at the minute, but if one of her apprentices or somebody else wants to step up and solve this horrible crime, this is the board we're going on, right? And chief suspect here would be golden pocket in around $90. End of the week holding that, you could fill it all now and close that gap. It would usually happen in the first 2 hours of price action. You can see that we've gone through one of them and it hasn't been closed yet, though it is a negative formation. The 236 has held its degree of support. If that continues, it won't drop there in the next couple of hours. And then if it doesn't happen in the last hour of today, I don't anticipate it happening in the middle of the day. If it doesn't happen in the last hour of the middle of the day, then it may well be that you get a little bit of a touch of positive inflection at the start of next week. We'll see. The general market will tell us more. So that's interesting. I also think that it looks a little bit screwed though. 4 hours, you've managed to find resistance at this 50 simple. You can see the 200 comes up, and that's not at a significant level in horizontals. It is at 112 left. I suppose maybe, 1, 2, right? There's 2 touches here. That could be a reason for it to stall should it break to the top side and exceed this 104.80. Then find it at 111, 112, meeting this downward sloping supply line at 120, and then topside 129. They'd be resistance levels above. Breaking any of them seems unlikely when it's putting in a doji and it got a massive gap below it. Down to the 1 hour time frame, you've met that 200 period moving average. Bing, bada bong, 1.618 should this fail down at 70.34. Is it going to happen today? Not necessarily. It could be the next low in the oscillation of this trend. I wouldn't discount it. I wouldn't. It doesn't look particularly bullish. This is a lot of volume on open. Suggest that's rejection. Very cyclic. Anyway, right. So rejection there, looking left. You'd need to, and could well do so, close above 104.80, but I'd look for it on a 4 hour time frame, and you don't have many of those today. And then 112.73 on the 4 hour, you see you've got 200 period moving average. There's so many things above this that find resistance, and there's so many reasons to go back down, and then this would be the first place to look to entry at 89.47 if you were going long, and at that point you'd be looking for potentially a higher low, and as such a test of this 200, or exceed it and come up to the top side of this downward sloping supply line in at around 100, again, somewhere where the 200 period moving is right now, but you might be further to the right if this trend's displaced. So we'll see how that goes. But I could easily see it back at $70 and 40 cents or so, and that potentially being higher low in RSI, and that being a better entry at that stage. You might be looking for a test back up to the top side here, but hard to fight this downward sloping trend. Certainly I wouldn't spend any of my time doing it. There's oscillations within it that you might be able to exploit. Filling that gap would be one of them, and it may well be that that's the trade, right? With the least risk and the highest reward and least amount of stress. But you'll have to wait for the opportunity. It might be a rejection of this 200 period or a rejection of this 105, and then trying to close it in around $90, this golden pocket, or following it with a stop, some of it, and coming down to these sort of levels. And that would be if you really wanted to short it. That might be where you find the best. Either that or a break above these levels and retest, and then subsequent moves could lead to huge moves. I would expect that to happen at some point, and I know a number of traders who are quite bullish on China and think this is a huge opportunity for a wee while, temporarily, and that might then be like seeing Alibaba back up at 186, 177. If it breaks above this 236 at 105, if it covers that 200 period moving average and it defeats this trend, that's where it's going. That would be where it was going. And if it should manage to get back up and test this previous trend, that demand line now supply around there, 271, that'd be crazy trades on the go. It's just, that's why they're looking at it. Not necessarily bullish on China, but they're very bullish on the opportunities that things could do if they're trying to oscillate to the top side within a continuation of a trend to the downside even. So dip of interest in there. Did I record that? I did. And did we get down interesting time frames? What's it going to do for the rest of the day? Well, markets are open. There's the gap. You've had a retracement already. That's the 8 period moving average meeting 236 within this trend. If it doesn't hold around 98 spot 24, then I'd be targeting around $90 and fill that gap, get the golden pocket, and then come back and test the 200 period moving average. That might be the trade to take, in terms of percentage and risk reward. It kind of looks quite interesting. That's what I'd be going for. So that's a baba. Thanks very much, Monk. I'll tweet it at you. I hope you saw it. Bam. And then Lady Kim, banana, yeah. Wow. We did it. What time is it? 15:39. And I'll be back for Distillation Anthony Rocca, Smithville AMC. Sure, that doesn't read like a request, but it looks positive, so I'm happy. Happy for you and me and everyone. Is it what it is? Was it isn't? It is. That's true. Will be forever until it isn't. Lol, yes. Need an edit button. Edit, please. Yeah. Thanks very much for the positive messages, Lady Kim. I hope you have an amazing weekend. I'm going to have a cup of tea, check in with Rocky, check with my dad, see how he's doing. So I got a message from him at the start there. I have to get to quickly. And then Got to hang up a washing. Got loads of things to do, loads and loads of things to do, and then prepare later on for sploshing. And I have to do some trading because fucking bills myself, so I have to do some trading later. Holy sugars! How good was PayPal, by the way? 90 spot 65. You made it to 236 and then some. Back to the 200 period moving average there, quite possibly. Still above 90 bucks. There's that flash. There's your golden pocket. 106, 107. Exceeded take profit target there. Calls went up. Here, right? I did a video on this 10 days ago. Amazing. Talked about it. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Maybe the day before yesterday. And was quite emphatic about the fact that it was probably going to go up. People were saying down. I was quite emphatic. And then it did it. And it was very, very, very good trade. Right? Very, very good trade. Made me happy. Anyway, it's not the be all and end all. But it's interesting. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We had a lot of interesting stuff to look at. Do we look at DWAC? Why is it up on a different screen there? It's made its back down, testing this gap. Yeah, we'll see if that goes down. Looks like it may well do come in there at 40.18. See, you know, a little bit there. You've had a big move on it already though, so if you're trading it, it'll be taking profits and that and being sensible at the right places. Thanks everybody. Hit a like button if I've missed anything. Apologize. I was trying to get through the Tradespotting 905 Lou on Hood hat. Yeah, for it to be so below 10 bucks, we was correct. Gain or the Hood, you could have paid your, like, honestly, you could have made a living trading Hood. This with the short trades we've been talking about. We've only said 3 or 4 of them, and I've said don't take these other ones, and then been like that. Anyway, blurg, we had a blurg on PayPal here. This is a downward sloping supply line. This is interesting, right? Interesting. This old TA, a lot of value in there too. Glad I clicked that. Right. So thanks everybody. Great stream, got loads of little requests in there, so made some clips which will look good in future and whatnot. These was, I think they're excellent value. You know, I think they're excellent value, these fax requests. I think they bring a lot of credibility to all of us, you know, because we're all trying to do these same things, aren't we? And so when I make these clips and put them out there on Twitter and what, and people are like, what is that, you know? And they're like, oh, you know, I spend like 4 weeks coming up with a prediction on one thing, and they see that and they're like, wow, those guys, like, they just bang those things out. You did such a brilliant, positive job. Is that on me? Great, thanks. Brilliant stream. Thanks so much. Love the stream, Jamie. Thanks, Rocky. That's brilliant. Yeah, and we do these fax requests, and it makes us look fucking good. And like I say, we're the world select. We're the fucking scoring goal of the season every week. And we know we're going to as we sit down in the chair. Brilliant. Thanks, guys.